We're live.
We all live.
You are looking live at the GovCast.
Woo!
Time. Post 4th of July.
Man, we are saving
Everybody make it through the holiday.
5 fingers, 10 fingers,
You got all 10?
all 10. Yep.
I think, I don't know if you heard, like one of the NHL goalies actually passed away. He had a fireworks accident. It's not funny.
Jeez.
And he literally, firework hit him. He fell back. He passed away. Not to be so morbid to start the show. And then, I don't know if you saw in near my hometown, Ocean City, Maryland, had fireworks all queued up. They were setting them up Sunday morning, and the truck blew up. So if
I wonder how much they paid for fireworks. Those fireworks shows are expensive. I was researching before the show, Jack, and it's like every year they spend like the government, $50 million on fireworks. Like it's no joke.
Yeah, I would think it would be more than that, actually.
But I'm thinking in Ocean City, though, right? Like, what was that? $200,000 in like 3 seconds?
Right, in like a half an hour gone. Right, so the folks in Ocean City, Maryland, getting ready for their fireworks in the morning, they roll out the truck. Somebody fires up a flint, and there it went. You can go. It literally made CNN, the BBC. Yeah. So the end of the boardwalk. So they had sparklers. That was their celebration if you're in Ocean City, Maryland. So,
that doesn't cut it. You need the mortars. You need the big ones.
So crazy. So, hey, welcome to the show today.
I'm here. Steve Bryan, the Mountain Man. Take it over the mountains.
Why are you the Mountain Man today? What's happening?
We got a special guest.
Well, who's coming on the show?
The Sherpa.
Yeah. Eileen Kent. Judy Brand will be here.
Yep. Judy Brand, Eileen Kent. We're excited for our 2 guests. I think they're joining us around, 12:30?
Yes. They'll be in a little bit. So today we're just going to level set. Over the last couple of weeks, we get a lot of questions inbound because there'd be a little confusion about, hey, the start of the fiscal years and what does it mean for state and local and education and federal. I thought it was October 1st. And so we just wanted to spend the show just kind of like tying up some loose ends. Andrea would be here to help with that, but she decided she had to like travel the country. So she's off. I think she's in the state of New York, and then she's going to North Carolina.
Yeah. I don't even think we'll see her next week either, Jack. I think
we're putting out, just like when you would miss a couple of weeks. I think we're putting out, if you're interested in the show, put your name in the bottom. We're taking applications for our third number 3 host.
What's the qualifications to join the show, though? If you're
very low, the bar is very low. No offense to our current host, the bar is very low. Warm a mirror, have some affinity, interesting personality. If you have a pet, you can bring to the show.
Yes. That's all I got on me over here.
That's right. If you got a pet, you can mix in. What happened? What's in the closet there? You got your closet.
Hey! We'll be looking in my closet. The skeletons are back there.
That's in your closet. So you want to come out? Oh, I'm taking that back. All right. No, sorry. Hey. Yes. So we're really blessed. Eileen Kent and Judy Brand will be here in a little bit to talk about the federal fiscal year. And so we'll go through all those things. There they are. So they'll be here in just a little bit. And so we just want to kind of field some questions. Before that, listen, I don't know if anyone saw it. Crossed my email this morning. So the part I reference this contract all the time. So the JEDI contract, right? The JEDI is Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure. So the DoD put out this kind of a cloud opportunity, right? And so awarded the contract to Microsoft. There's only a couple of vendors that would really get in it. Really, Microsoft, Amazon, the 2 major ones going head to head. Got awarded to Microsoft. Then Amazon protested. It's been going round and around. $10 billion contract was awarded, then protested, and this morning, canceled. They said, too late, forget your plate. Not on the specs, but the spec. It is, man. The specs we put out a couple years ago now are no longer relevant.
It's like 3 years ago when they first did it. Now they're like, hey, times have changed. We need new things.
So that is crazy. If you just think about a $10 billion contract. Now, listen, just a quick little sidebar. Look at your cat moving around me. She's all irritated by it. Look, but listen, I just want to know, what happens to the salesperson or persons that are involved?
Clawback. The company.
I just cannot. One, I've always said, imagine winning if you're the lead person. I assume there's a couple people involved, right? It's big. if you're the lead person on a $10 billion win, I assume that night, a couple years ago when you found out you won, you go home, you throw it down, whatever, the best of your best, you're like, done deal, 10
I
million.
made it. I made it. You can't do better than that. Like that's the peak of the mountain, as the mountain.
Whatever, like 1%, 10%, 7%, splitting 10%. I mean, holy moly! Like
any variation. I couldn't imagine that. It's like the highs and the lows, right? Of sales. I think we all go through it, but on that magnitude, that is devastating. Like, who knows if he or she? I don't know who was awarded it. You know, the person that worked for Microsoft, but we got to find that out. Let's bring them on as a guest. We need an interview.
Oh, now producer team, listen, right? Team
GovCast.
Get inside Microsoft. Oh, we just had we had Carson. He works for Microsoft. Let's ping Carson from 2 weeks ago. Let's get Carson and figure out who's the name.
That's it.
I'm sure they're going to want to talk about it. I'm sure
we're going to go from the top million to the top 1. I think that's going to be a highly watched.
First, would be like CNN, first live interview with the Microsoft team. But I don't want the CEO. Like, I don't want all the figurehead PR. I want the salesperson who lived the joy, now the lack of joy. I mean, that's just,
woo!
Man, $10 billion. So today they announced they've gone so far. God bless Amazon and their protests. So they came so far. The re-release today was, okay, we're going to re-release something. We definitely need our stuff on the cloud, All Carson Hetty, we'll find him at Microsoft. But now that the new release was, okay, we're going to redo it, new specs. We're probably going to award both to Microsoft and Amazon. So they're getting ahead of it, right? They're the only 2 vendors with big cloud solutions. And then it makes another reference because they'll get sued otherwise as well. Like, hey, we'll also have some other vendors as we see fit, blah, blah, blah. So it seems like, good.
I just looked up, Amazon lobbying efforts. I always like to do it. Open secrets. They spent last year $5 million on lobbying efforts.
Oh, that's small for them. That's nothing.
That's it. You're going against a 10 billion, right? But $5 million. I don't know who else is comparing with them, but
I assume that would be small too because it was COVID. You got to remember, no one was even around. So I bet you years prior. I mean, yeah, that's just a lot. Those are all the.
There's politics played there. I think. I'm just calling it out there.
Really, politics. People. What is lobbying? Well, lobbying is what? They're going to talk to people in DC.
Shaking hands, going out to dinners, walking K Street and J Street and H Street.
Go to the swamp.
Drain the swamp.
Let's not get too political. The swamp is a real thing. Look, I would love, no matter what your political event is, if you just take out a couple people that've been there for decades, you're just like, oh, so-and-so showed up, they were worth this much. Oh, now they're worth this much. Or whatever.
Yeah, now they're set for life.
Like, whatever's going on, it's not good. It's not. We're all a little blinded by our own stuff. So listen, in that same vein, so we just want to talk about the budgeting process, the different fiscal years, what that means for you as a company, what that means for opportunities, how to win items. And so I want to just talk about a couple of the webinars we've done, one we're going to do, some of the budget cycles, kind of connect some of the dots because we got a bunch of inbound questions. And so I said, hey, instead of fielding these one by one as they come in, why don't we just do a show about it? So let's just start with list the budget. So each federal, state, and local entity will go through a budget cycle, right? And rarely, almost none of them. Oh, here, there's actually the chart, the graphic. Almost none of them really go January to December like we do a calendar year. They all have what's called fiscal years, like their fiscal years. And so you see 46 of the 50 states go July to the end of June. So a lot of the state entities are starting their new fiscal year now. Can you bring the graphic back for just one time real quick? And then the other 3, thank you so much, are New York, Texas, Alabama, 4, and Michigan are all off that cycle a little bit. So New York starts April 1st. Texas will start with the federal government on September 1st. September. Texas does this by itself. And then Alabama, Michigan will start with the federal government on October 1st. And so all the federal agencies, the federal fiscal year starts October 1st to the end of September. So again, there's federal, state, and local. And the federal, which you hear a lot about, starts October 1st. A lot of the state and local start just now, July 1st, just a couple days ago. So the fiscal year, just different from the calendar year that you and I, most people budget on or, we run our normal year by. They work on a fiscal year. So it's not chaos at the end of the year or, while the holidays. So they moved it out for different fiscal cycles. Yep.
I got a fun tip for the audience, Jack.
Go.
Do you know the best time to plan for the fiscal year if you're a sales organization trying to sell to the government?
The day of?
Day of, you're right. That is the answer. So July starting a new fiscal year for a majority of the state, local, and education states. So right now, you're like, oh, I missed it. I didn't get in the budget. Start today. Listen, they're going to be next year and then next year and next year. It just keeps happening. So right now is a great time to focus your energy because if you miss it, you can still get the money, right, Jack? Like the government always has it. They can find a way to shift those funds.
True.
Even if you're not in the budget, they just have to like what you want because there's always that, I don't want to say rainy day fund, but there's definitely a budget put on the side. But July 1st is when you're planning for the next year, and it's a year-long sales cycle. You know, you can wield deals and days. We talk about it all the time. Depends on the budgets. But for those larger ones that you have to plan, like those $10 billion deals, that is one of the things that's going to take some of those cycles. And that's why I'm excited to have our guest on today as well, because the federal's coming up, and that's the big money, Jack.
Yeah. I think a couple things. I think in a perfect world, folks are gonna, start a couple months before the end. There's 2 times right before and after the beginning of the fiscal year, the government spends a ton of money, and in a perfect world, you're going to prepare before that. So, but before we do that, I just want to again level set. So, if folks, when they hear the budget, so the one that gets the most press is the federal budget. So, just to kind of clean up some loose ends, the federal fiscal year starts October 1st. One of the reasons they do that is for the election cycle. So the budget we're in right now is President Trump's last budget, right? And Joe Biden's budget will come now on October 1st, right? So his first budget will start here October 1st. That's why they want the president to get in the end of January, fourth week in third 3.5 weeks in January. Then they want to give him or her time to put in their budget, right? And so you'll see Biden's first budget come live here on October 1st. So that's on the federal side. And then again, on the state and local side, though most of those fiscal years just started on July 1st. And so now going back to what Stephen was talking about, there's a ton of spending that happens around that. So we just want to show you a couple charts. So can we put up the state and local chart that we have? So you'll see, I think this is last year's. And so you'll just see the spike that happens right now. It's both, you can see it leads up at the end of the fiscal year. A lot of agencies have quote unquote kind of use or lose funds. They got budgeted money and maybe they didn't spend it all. And then when the new fiscal year starts, there's a lot of spending that happens. Again, this is the state and local. A lot of it starts July 1st, but you'll see there's a spike that's 2.5 times what it normally is. Again, kind of the end of the fiscal year for state and local. And then as the new budget cycle, the budgets got allocated, a lot of spending that's done right away because it's already been put in the budget. The contract's already let, and they were just waiting kind of get the funds, just like you do on payday, right? It's just like
that's what I was thinking. You get your allowance, like, oh, now I can go out to dinner or do something. So
that's exactly what happens, right? The government has a ton of things they need, and some of it's on a regular annual cycle, so it happens right away. But when they need things, right, so they'll do that, and so a lot of that happens. And then I think we have one year over year in the state and local world. So folks are like, was that just last year? But I think if the production folks, I think we have the 1 year over year where you'll see it spikes constantly during that time. So it's not just year over year. So you have the one from, we're getting a note. No.
See? It looks like the EKG machine. It's like every July. Oh,
right.
So every year the past 5 years, it was up.
Yeah. But do you have the education one we had? Literally, so in the school, oh, there it is. That's the one I was talking about. So, we just did, so there's state and local. And then we just did a webinar about education because a lot of the educational institutions at a state and local level will match kind of the states. And so you'll see, we showed this a couple weeks ago during the webinar, there is the spike. It's not just 1 year. So folks are like, that was just last year because of COVID or blah, blah, blah. It's really not. So there is this spike in spending, no matter where you are at the state and local level, every year during the summer, about the June or July, there's just a spike. But again, end of the fiscal year, ton of spending, starting out the new fiscal year, and you saw year over year, it happens. So ton of money being spent. As Stephen mentioned, it would be great if you were prepared, had a connection. It's just easier. All of sales is about relationships, right? And so that would be great. But now's the time as well. They're spending a ton of money, and obviously they got to make it last the full 12 months. And so there's just a lot of things going on. right now, some of the purchasing folks can be overwhelmed. If you try to hit them up right now, they'll be a little overwhelmed issuing POs.
Yeah, they don't have time. They got to spend. They don't have time to talk. But it's being, those existing relationships that you have. But now's the time to break in as well. Like now is the time, especially with schools. Jack mentioned our webinar. It was a few weeks ago about selling to schools. And in addition to that money that you see, where it went from 70 billion to 140 billion.
Yeah.
There's $168 billion. And it's just so weird to be throwing out these billions, here and there, but $168 billion with the American Rescue Plan Act, just with education institutions. So this is like new money that they never had. So if you have never sold to schools, do it.
Do we have the graphic for the webinar? I'd love to show folks. So listen, we did a webinar about a month ago. If folks want to go watch it. So again, there's state and local, that budget funding. And so there's the link. We literally did an entire webinar, an hour on educational spending. So normally when folks hear education, like, no, the schools don't have any money. And I don't want to go to the schools unless you're very specific. I'm a paper provider, all the things for school specific, helmets, all those things the schools need. But now listen, as we went through the webinar and we showed you all the different funding options, a lot of the COVID stimulus bills, as Stephen just mentioned, had a ton of money for schools. Amazing, both to put infrastructure in the schools, literally sometimes to put technology out to the homes in the local neighborhood, to get students laptops and technology and Wi-Fi. The schools have never had more money the last several decades than they have now. They have about a 12 to 18 month window to spend it all. But it's so important for all the vendors and the folks watching the show to know, because the schools aren't used to having money. It's just like somebody when they hit the lottery, right? Oh my gosh, I just got
the lottery curse, they call it. It's as soon as they win, it's like, woo! They never had it before.
Right. So in the lottery, the thing is like somebody is typically, I think, when they study them, the lotto winners are as broke 10 years later as when they start, because they don't know how to manage it. And so hopefully the schools aren't that bad, right? But they have a ton of money. So state and local, you see all the spending happening now. The schools, no matter what, have a ton of money. So maybe you can put that link back up one more time. If folks,
if people just go to govsalesuniversity.com, we have a whole webinars tab, and the schools one is right at the top. It's created a lot of buzz. A lot of folks were not even aware of the amount of money that has been awarded to them. Actually, it's actually 3 years, Jack, that they'll have to spend it. So
yeah.
No, it'll continue, but like now's the cusp. So you have to, just get in early, let them know who you are, what you do, whatever product and service. There's even new programs, a lot with like health and wellness, mental health and support. Just trying to get people back to normal, because after recovering, kids were working from home, or not working from home, learning from home. Need to get kids working from home. That's child labor laws. That's not happening. But we were working from home. Kids were learning from home. But you understand, it's like these schools are just trying to get ramped up, things back to normal. And that's what the American Rescue Plan Act is all about. Just getting things back to that stable place where everyone's feeling comfortable.
Yeah. I think you're totally true. So if you, for our folks that have maybe some things you're like, well, the schools don't buy this. The schools don't buy this. Well, with the COVID stimulus money, they've really expanded a lot of things. So they literally, as Stephen mentioned, all the way to like some of the students that are homeless, and a lot of things that they will provide funding for. And so just encourage folks to, reach out and find a ton of money there. Have money they aren't just give. Yep. So true. Right. It's like, you got to find their pain points, and like, listen, every school's a little different. Like what works and is prevalent. We all know this in California schools is going to be super different than what's going down in Texas, which is going to be very different than what's happening in Florida or Illinois or Maryland. So it is so important. Did you have something you wanted to add, Steve?
It's true, Jack. It's true. I concur with that thought.
Yeah. So important, like, to make sure that you're, what you're pursuing, and just want to encourage. So just to back up and level set. So the federal budget we hear so much about, that's about to start. We're going to talk to Eileen and Judy here in just a little bit about the federal budget cycle. That starts on October 1st, Biden's new budget. The state and local budgets, right, just got approved for 46 of the 50 states. That's just starting. That spending is just starting to happen. Great time to reach out, start talking to folks. Hey, here's what I do, blah, 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 making that happen. And the schools in that paradigm, a lot of them are right now, and that they have a ton of money. And so those are the three connections. It's kind of like the federal government, state and local, and education. Now, a lot of times, for those of you new to the government market, the schools, state, local, and education will get lumped together, and you'll hear them referred to as SLED, right? It'll be SLED deal, state, local, education. But you want to make sure, listen, the education group has a ton of money now, a ton, way more than they've ever had. It's totally different. So normally if you would go to your state or local agency, you want to make sure that you're very, very focused, because there's certain allocations in the stimulus package that are for the schools that won't be to your state and local agencies. So super important. So those are all the tie-in and connection points, because sometimes when folks, they're online, they're like, different fiscal years, I didn't see it, what's happening, blah, blah, blah. So can we bring up the graphic again about the fiscal years, the chart, so folks will see it one last time, so they can, now that we've kind of pieced them all together. So here is all of the date. Well, you got different ones all the time. Look, so there they are. 46 of the states are now through the end of June, right? New York, April 1st through the end of March. Texas starts September 1st. They got to do everything different. They're like their own little country, right? And then Alabama and Michigan follow the federal budget cycle, again, which starts on October 1st through the end of September. So those are the fiscal budget cycles and how they work. So any other last items before we bring in our guest, Stephen, about the budget cycles and how they all connect?
I think it's pretty clear with that graphic. And if you need other infographics, if you go to govsalesuniversity.com, we also have free resources, because those are dates you want to pin on your wall right next to you, because you have to know the cycles in order if you're going to be selling to the government, because getting in the budget is one part of the battle. Knowing how they spend their money is another one. So we have a lot of infographics that you can print out. I think, what is there, 7 or 8, Jack, on the slide?
Yeah, there's like 9 of them. Yep.
Oh, and actually 9 of them. So if you go to GovSales, we were talking about the webinars where you can check out the school webinars that we just have. You can also go to a resource tab. It's all free. We're just trying to help people so they can get in the game and start working. Because once you're in the game, government, all this stuff, you're like, of course I know it's July. Of course I know October's federal. Like, that's just part of nature. But if you don't know, that's why we're here promoting and trying to tell you what's going on and help everybody on this journey together, because the government spends a ton of money. It's just about knowing the processes and the whole thing. So I appreciate everyone joining us.
Yeah. And actually, why don't you tell folks about the next webinar, Steve? Because the next webinar we're going to do is about kind of, hey, exactly what Steven started the show with. How do I go now sell? Now it's a new fiscal year. I hear about that. Am I late to the game? How does it work? How's the government buying? What do I do? Because so many folks are interested now, particularly since COVID. The government has a ton of money. So, Steve, why don't you tell folks about the next webinar that GSU is sponsoring? Yeah,
well, I think the date is the 21st. Is that correct? Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern time. I'm normally up to a slide here, so. Yes, I get a yes from Team GovCast. All right, thanks for the confirmation. Because we had it scheduled earlier for this month, and then we.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we just pushed it back to the 21st. Just double checking that box there as we go back. But we plan for these webinars each month, every month. So as soon as we finish the first webinar, we're planning the second one or the next one after that. But this one is really I think everyone's the best one, Jack. Don't you agree? Like, we just had the ones on the schools. So the next one coming up is going to be a great webinar. And it's really just teaching people what they need to know. I think there's a lot of people out there that know the government's a good place to sell to, but it's about how and the strategies. And I just love when our phone rings off the hook once a webinar goes out and people start downloading the replays, because that's when we know we're doing something good. Like, I had a call today. I'm not going to name the company, but Fortune 500 company, been doing this for 100 years. And they were talking about their sales leadership meeting, saying, you got to watch these replay, like all the sales members, like down below. And they all started, I'm like, you don't have to all download. I'll share it with you. But that just shows that, like, you can teach an old dog new tricks, because these businesses have been around for a while, right? Oh, I got it all figured out, Jack. I've been doing it for 50 years. Have you ever heard that line before? No. Of course. But what are you doing new that's innovative? And how are you staying up with the times? And little tips and tricks that we teach throughout these webinars are just to keep people up to speed of what's happening in the market, because we talk to thousands of companies every month, and we take that knowledge, we put it into our GovSales University program, and then we take pieces of that and share it throughout our webinar. So again, really excited. Just go to govsalesuniversity.com/webinar. There's the URL. And you can register absolutely free. We do this once a month. So for those that keep supporting us, I think we have a good cult following now, Jack. I feel like 200-300 people have seen at least like 3 or 4 of our webinars. So thanks so much for our support. That's why we keep doing it, because of all of you. So thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, the webinar, again, will be about, hey, how are the local and state agencies spending these funds? And so we kind of want to connect the dots. We did education last month. We'll do the state and local agencies this month. And so that will be on the 21st at noon. You can register. We'll give you the link at the end again. And then now we're so blessed. I want to bring on Eileen Kent and Judy Brandt. We're going to talk about the federal budget cycle. And so these two ladies, listen, are two of the experts of the. Oh, look at that! Hold on, look.
We got some cool summer shades.
We're going back, right?
We got to do our intro music again. You guys know?
Hold on. I think I got it.
Cue it up.
I got it. Hold on. There you go. Look, see, we'll bring it back.
Rotate. We need to rotate. Here we go.
That's funny. Listen, for those of you who don't know, listen, Judy, Eileen run the federal government world. Two of the experts. Amazing. And so blessed to have them here. And just want to really spend a couple minutes. Ladies, why don't you both introduce yourself? Eileen, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell folks about your background. The two people that may in the whole world that don't know who you are.
Hi, my name is Eileen, and I am known as the Federal Sales Sherpa, and I help people with learning how to sell to the federal government. I do deep dive competitive analyses, and I build federal sales action plans. So I train teams remotely, and I've been doing it since just after 9/11.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming. Judy, you as well?
Hey, Jack, Stephen, thanks for having us. I'm all about the relationships that you need to be successful and master of the players at all the layers, and helping people make the flip from looking at what can I bid to who's my buyer and how can I get to know them. So someone who wants to transform your experience and shatter opportunity illusion and really start to get in front of people the way winners do faster. That is the journey we want to take you on in 2022. And we're going to talk about how that can actually happen, how to avoid the pitfalls that are lying ahead for the unwary in the year that's going to start in just a few weeks on October 1st at the federal level.
Yes. So I'm just going to turn over to both of you. I'd love to. So can you share what's coming up? Because I think sometimes folks hear the fiscal year in October and the federal one. So I'm just going to turn this show over to you all. And if you could share our audience as they think about the federal budget cycle coming up, planning for it, how you help them, that kind of thing. I'll just let you guys do your thing.
Jack, let's just go backstage. We'll turn it over.
Right, go ahead. You guys just do your thing.
So my name is Eileen, as you know, and I work a lot with Judy as well. She's one of my favorite partners. I love working with her on a very regular basis. We've worked with over 100 clients together. So we love working together. And right now, from July 1st till September 30th, it's called the Q4 time, which is the federal fourth quarter, where they're thinking about $200 billion. Almost half the budget is being spent at this time. It's very busy, very crazy. But really what's happening is, here's the challenge, is that they have budgeted projects and they're expecting to spend a certain amount of money. And what happens is, let's say, for example, they're looking to reconstruct a building, Jack and Stephen. So think about they have a budget of $1 million. So they put the bid out during fourth quarter, and then all the bids come in at $500,000. So they awarded at $500,000. Now they have $500,000 to spend. And then they say to the team, I have this money, I got to use it or lose it, right? And then all of a sudden their end users say, well, I have a project for $100,000. So they do a bid and that comes out 50. So now they have 450. So there's this perpetual time of suddenly money left over, where what Judy and I like to say to our clients is, the best time to get in front of your clients is in Q3 and leading up to Q4 to do wish list proposals for last minute money that comes up. So they're trying to spend it quickly. It's the fourth quarter. And then the first quarter's coming up October 1st, which is things start to calm down. I'm just going to throw that to Judy. Judy can kind of talk about the calming down time. You know, it's a crazy harvest time. And then we've got calm down time. Q1, which starts October 1st. So I'm going to let Judy have that piece there.
Absolutely. And the thing to think about, I know that a lot of the GovCast community here is often focused on state and local, but that's a great place to have built your track record and your experience. And if you are listening to this and you are thinking of stepping up to federal on the one hand, and now you're hitting the quiet time in state and local, and you're thinking, oh, good, now I can go and cash in on the federal fourth quarter, hold your horses. If you're new to federal, then it may be that the one thing that you can give somebody isn't, hi, buy my stuff, you've never heard of me. Really? Remember, these folks are risk averse. They've got a lot at stake. The thing you may be able to give them is a bid for the file. Our federal buyers are under a lot of pressure to show that they shopped. And it may be that take your time. Federal is a long game. And so the thing that your federal buyer may need most is evidence to show that they got lots of choices. And so your best efforts, but don't knock yourself out and go crazy, bid shows that they shopped. And it also puts down a marker that lets you, because you bid, you're not going to expect to win.
Yeah.
So make an appointment to follow up in October after mid-October, when they finish their fiscal year-end paperwork, the thing that the state people are doing now. This is what's going to happen for federal buyers at the beginning of October. So put down a marker for after the middle of the month in October, and then start your journey in earnest. Use this as a learning time now, but don't wander around going, oh, federal fourth quarter. Yeah, well, pay attention to the players at all the layers, get to know people, be helpful, but don't try to smash your way in. You're really playing the long game, doing research now, thinking, all right, where am I going to spend my time come October 1st? There's a lot of craziness going on in the marketplace. Eileen can tell you about all the ginormous distractions, but then how to stay focused and be profitable in the federal fiscal year that starts on October 1st. This is what we want you to do. So I have my New Year's celebration crown on, so you can stay focused on
I love it.
How to launch in style.
There.
We started the show with the release of the Jedi contract that got canceled this morning. It's like, oh geez, I just can't imagine. I said, if you were the salesperson on that at Microsoft, you're like, oh gee, I can't.
Well, you can fix these. So I brought my magic wand to make everything better.
The heartburn, jeezy peasy.
That's it. So you said middle October, right? Things kind of quiet down. Good to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get in there, right? Like you say, hey, it's a long game, right? Great to develop relationships, get people to know me, put my offer in there, even though I'm not going to win, right? Just trying to get my name out there. But how do I do that? How do I break through that federal exterior, right? I don't have my pass to get in the Secret Service gate. So what's the best way to start those relationships?
Right. Well, the first thing you need to do is a little bit of homework and make sure you're trained and you understand what you're talking about, what they do. So one of the first things we always like to say is do your homework. Take a look at who buys what you sell from whom. And there's data available, publicly available, if you know how to interpret it, or if you hire someone who can interpret it for you. So the first thing you need to do is kind of focus on just a handful of agencies that buy what you sell. And then when you approach them, Stephen, you need to focus on, most importantly, the end user, the person who needs what you sell. If you're selling supplies for facilities, the facility manager, the engineering department. If you're selling sustainability, again, facility managers. But if it's IT, you need to get to know the CIO, et cetera. Getting to know the end users and hanging out where they hang out at the professional associations where they're at, you're going to start hearing buzzwords about pain. And then they start to talk to you about that pain. And then you start to create what we would call mini white papers, or creating some sort of mini solution, or bringing in a subject matter. Hey, have you met my friend that's really good at cybersecurity? You start to gain their trust by bringing them, kind of like what you do, your webinars, et cetera. You bring them knowledge-based information to capture their attention and their imagination. Then they start asking the tough questions, and you can start customizing things. So there's several ways to do this. Obviously, LinkedIn, as we all four of us know, is a great place where federal employees hang out. If you post things and you're active, they're going to see you as an expert in an area. They're not going to responder like? They're watching, right? And then reaching out to them and calling on them and developing a relationship. I like to look at it as a doctor. Tell me how it's going with the current incumbent. My research shows me that you like to work with XYZ company and you're doing this project. Is that coming to an end soon? Do you have other things coming down the pipeline? Are you happy? What would you change if you had a chance to do that? So you're starting to develop a dialogue of trust. And October to December is a more relaxed time to do that. We call it planting seeds time. So, and there's a lot of new things happening right now, which is causing a lot of distraction from those conversations.
That's great. Or if you have a magic wand, that's Judy's question, I bet.
Judy has the players at the layers, Judy. Do your thing.
Well, something that you really need to keep in mind that Eileen alluded to, people get their socks in a twist about who's my federal buyer? Oh, my federal buyer is the contracting officer. Oh, no, my federal buyer is the end user. Relax. Your federal buyer is really a composite of what we talk about as the players at all the layers. The players and layers method, acronyms out to PALM, P-A-L-M, the idea of having federal business in the palm of your hand and that close. 5 layers, and I'm going to write them down. Pay attention, and I'll drop a link in the chat where you can find out more. Here's what I think of as the players at all 5 layers. Each of them has a role.
We got it.
You got it?
Yeah, there it is.
All right. I'm going to talk first and cut and paste later. Small business specialists, they're not your buyer. They can be your advocate. They can be your guide. They can be your obstacle, depending on whether you know how much research you've done. The more research you've done, oddly enough, the more helpful they're going to be. It's paradoxical. But the second player has a power that the President of the United States does not have, the legal authority to bind your company and the United States to a contract to provide goods and services and expertise. That's your second layer. But the contracting layer, they're not the ones who are stuck with the consequences of, or in fact defining the requirement for what they want. That's your, broadly speaking, your end user layer, which can have a lot of players in it. Job titles like your typical customers have: technical specialists, help desk person, facilities manager, program manager. It's a very, very heavy layer, and that is where there's a lot of relationships to be made, intelligence to be gathered about what they like and don't like, including about their current vendors and what they wish they had done. That's a lot of conversations to have. If you're going, hey, I don't have time to learn about all these people. If you don't have time to learn about your federal buyer, they sure as heck do not have time to learn about you.
Yeah.
So 2 other layers you can hear about are stakeholder. Again, capo to 2D capi, base commander, CIO, cabinet secretary. They are maybe the person on the dais. They may be the person that you're not going to meet with them and ask them to introduce you to your buyer. They're high level, they're visionary like you. And finally, industry, your competitor. Some of them you'll team with them. Some of them, like Eileen and I, are competitive mates. I like to think of the federal business not as pie, oddly enough, not as zero sum. I want you to think of it like dough. Add warmth and it rises, and there is more for everyone.
Amen. Can you, by the way, yeah. So if some of this seems overwhelming, Judy and Eileen, great. Reach out to them. We'll give you their contact information at the end. They will make all of this very clear. And so as somebody listens, right, and like you said, maybe they won a couple government contracts, and now they're like, oh, I hear the big money at the federal level. I hear now it's third quarter or the fourth, beginning of the third quarter for them, or beginning of the fourth quarter. They're about to get their new money. What would someone do? What should someone do in the near term? What's 1 or 2 specific action steps besides call either one of you that they would do here in the near term to get them prepared? I think that's always it's like going to the gym. Once you're in the door, or if you're climbing, right, Judy? If you're climbing, I see you climbing online, right? So how do they get in the door? What's the first 1 or 2 little steps they can do to jump, just get their toe in the pool so they start learning the process? What would be the best advice you would give folks?
I can easily start with that is choose 12 people in your network right now who might know someone on the inside and can make a personal introduction.
Oh, that's great.
So who would you call on if you were me? That's your first step. And I don't care if it's a contractor or a buddy or a family member, because you need to get used to having a comfortable conversation with someone, because one of the biggest surprises you're going to have talking to a federal government employee first is they get personal really fast. So you might as well have a personal introduction to someone, and then they say, well, where did you go to school, or where did you grow up? Oh, I used to live there. And 45 minutes of the conversation is all this personal stuff. Why? Because they don't want to talk to you about mission. Maybe it's something secret that they're not ready to go. So things get personal pretty quickly. So go through your list of people. Is there anybody in your network who's doing business with the feds right now, or knows someone in the feds, and ask them straight out, can you make a personal introduction? I just want to have a conversation with anybody to practice. Just call it practice, but it's actually sales, right?
I love 12, Eileen. And because I'm going to give you another one of my magic wand moments. Somebody who's already done business with you is 12 times more likely to buy something from you than someone who's never heard of you.
Oh, that's good.
Let me put it another way. If you are spending all of your time writing novels to strangers and cold calling, you're working 1,200% stronger than you need to be. Who has time for that?
That's
So
really good stuff.
your federal buy, and even the people who love you, those 12 people Eileen mentioned, those 12 people, you think of them as your cream puff contacts. All right. Now, God forbid you call the Marine Corps a cream puff. Nonetheless, they're your soft touch. But even the people who know you, they love you, they trust you, they paid you, they do not wake up in the morning going, I want to dump a bucket of cash on Eileen's head. Now they should, but they don't. So you train them to do that. And so they want you to be successful, but you have to ask the question, if you were me, who would you be talking to? Now, some of that can feel, why don't we do that? It can feel awkward. It can feel like we're begging. So now I'm going to give you another magic wand moment, another transformative phrase. Write this one down. Okay. My business is growing and we're looking for new projects. Ooh, how exciting. Who wouldn't want to talk to you? My business is growing and we're looking for new projects. Say it until it feels comfortable. Then, if you were me, who would you be talking to? Or, hey, who do you know who would like to have this superlative experience that we've given you? Govies look out for each other. That for them, you're giving them an opportunity to help their buddy be successful. They might not be able to buy from you today. They may not have money, but they may know somebody over in the other office, in the other cube, in the other place they just got reposted from who could really use what you do. Is that the top of their mind thing to do when they woke up this morning? No. Do they love you? Golly, yeah, absolutely. So that gives you some idea for just how to check in. Our mutual buddy, Mark Amtower, had once shared a statistic. 67% of authorized federal buyers are never called on by anyone. Imagine. So just pick up the phone, call the people, start with the ones you know, which is where, again, research is your friend.
Judy, the 12 times, is that in the government space or just overall? That's
overall.
That's great.
Overall. And 12 is also another number. Our friends at Market Connections had research talking about the fact that your average federal buyer checks you out 12 times online before they ever talk to you. So your website better be up to date. Your SAM profile and your capability statement have to have a consistent name with what is on your profile. All of those, if a contracting officer sees that your stuff isn't not consistent, they may not ever call you back.
So true.
That sounds like validation marketing chapter in GovSales. No matter where they look, you want to make sure that you check all the boxes, because there's one little like red flag. They're like, what's going on here? And it's like, we call it ghosting when you just don't hear back from somebody.
Yeah.
Sure you have that. So,
and I can tell you that technique, I won Homeland Security's very first undisclosed location. Their very first 30 workstations were mine, because TSA was mad at my competitor and they walked me over to Homeland Security. So I didn't get business with TSA, but they're like, I'm going to stick it to the prime and walk you over personally. So if someone doesn't want to do business with you, then who else would? So that's another opportunity. And there's just one more little thing that I'd like you to do before, if you're looking for stuff right now, when you're using the public bid sites to look for opportunities and you have keywords and NAICS codes that you're using to track, I want you to start using the word before they need you. So if you sell furniture, who's doing repair and alterations? Who's moving? Who's buying new space? So if you're selling, so put in the word before you're needed, and then you call the client and say, hey, you're refurbishing a wing on that VA. You need some beds in the meantime. You need a trailer in the meantime. Can I help you? And then, oh my God, I didn't even think about the furniture part yet. Yeah. You're in front of an opportunity. So type in the keyword of the thing they buy before they need you. So
this is what we call a shadow opportunity.
Yeah.
So good. It's so true, Eileen. You nailed it out of the park on that one, because there's folks, you get in the architect and the engineering phase, even before they're building the building, right? Like, say it doesn't exist. Then the construction people get their bids. They build the building. And then after they build the building, what needs to happen? They got to put stuff in it. They got to put their furniture. They got to put the computers. They do it all. So the architects and engineers are really like that ground level that you can see what's going to be in the works to plan your future, because you got to get ahead of the curve in the game, right? Get in early, let them know who you are, try to have them spec you into it. But you mentioned Homeland Security, which when I was working with them, I went through the title, like it was like a government liaison, right? So you mentioned before, like points of contact, like the end user, the contractor, getting with the prime. Right. How successful have you been with the liaisons actually getting you to that right person that you need to deal with?
Right. The liaison is there. Sometimes they're the small business officer, but they might be a type of person that's just sitting with the business we call them gatekeepers, because they're there to tell the SBA they met with so many small businesses, really. So
checking a box more than helping.
But I like to go in and say, I've already done my homework. I already have my information about projects coming up, and I'm looking for these specific people at this specific location. I'm looking for the facility managers at Johnson Space Center. I'm looking for the engineers at the Vision 15, location, blah, blah, blah. But I go straight in and say, I want this person. And either they set up a meeting for me or they give me the name and I run from there. They just tell me how it's going to be received. So I'm going in, my home run is that end user. I'm going to do everything I can to find them, because that's my person.
That's it. Get around the gatekeeper.
Right.
Judy, anything you want to add to that?
Don't think so. I think that's absolutely right on. And you really, the more preparation you do, the more helpful the small business specialist is going to be. They are a player, but they don't have, and this is a big misunderstanding that a lot of folks have when you're just getting to know the space. The small business specialist does not have buying authority 99.999% of the time. Right. They don't. So they're easy to meet. There's lots of them. And if you're just meeting lots of happy people in the federal arena, look at their business cards, realize you need players at all 5 layers. And if you're just meeting lots of small business people and getting lots of yak, and not a lot of buying activity, that's why you need to know players at other layers. And I'm just putting in the flow the names of the 5 layers. And there's a link to our GovCon, my free GovCon personas guide. Okay. So I'm just dropping that in the flow as we speak.
Brian Tracy has a great video out, and he's like, listen, if you call somebody and they're busy or they're available all the time, you don't want to meet with them because they have no authority to buy anything. Like whoever, if they're busy my schedule's totally open, come by anytime. They're just the conversation person who's never buying. He's like, that's not, you want to find the person that's super busy because they're making things happen. Yep. So listen.
And users know each other at different locations. So like I said, I'm calling on TSA. I've started with TSA all over the country, and everyone kept saying, Washington won't let me work with you. And I'm like, okay, who's Mr. Washington? Well, it turned out it was a Ms. Washington, and her name was Mylan Tapscott. And I got in front of her, and she said, it's too late for you here. But I'm so mad at the current vendor. Let's walk it. It was an end user facility person who walked me over to the facility people. It wasn't to a buyer. It wasn't to a small business officer. End user to end user references, referrals. If you can't use me, who can? They all know who has money. If I don't have money, I know the other, because they're jealous. And they'll say, well, I don't have any money, but go talk to blah, blah, blah. And you're in. And so asking for referrals, even when it's a no, where would you go if you were me? If you're not the right person, where would you go? Or if you don't have money, who might? So then in the meantime, when you do have money, I'm still in business for you. They'll help you. They will help you.
I think sometimes too, entrepreneurs, business people, they forget it's our tax money, right? So they're obligated to share at some point some of the information. It's not like private industry where they're not obligated to tell you anything. When you say, hey, who might need me? Where's an opportunity? They're much more open because, again, it's our taxpayer money that they're actually spending all the time. So listen, these two ladies, two of the best, literally, especially when you're approaching the federal market, trying to find business. So could not encourage folks more to contact them. So Judy, can you tell folks about how to reach you? Look, I have Judy's book she mentioned, right? There you go. So yes, can you tell folks how would they reach out to you, what you have going on now, and the best way to reach you?
Absolutely. Connect with me on LinkedIn, of course, and put GovCast or met you through Jack Siney, so I know. If you just sent me a connection request and I don't know where you came from, develop good LinkedIn protocol. You can look at my website at growfedbiz.com. And if you're already in the federal market, we've got two things. I've got a Q4 planning slam and building blocks of a winning proposal. It's all on my website. And so visit the website, visit me, and you can get the book. Again, if you're new to federal, pick up the book. It's an Amazon #1 bestseller, and there's a workbook that goes with it. And check out my website where there's on-demand webinars, including one of my favorites, data diving. Eileen talked about looking at the data. I show you how to do that, how to get a start of what that journey is at growfedbiz.com. It's all there. And I'm going to drop something in the flow here. The Ultimate Guide to Winning Federal Business, whether you're in commercial and new to federal, you're just getting started in federal, or you're completely new, we've got resources and a flow to get you jump started. Okay, that's it right there on the screen. Thank you. That is awesome.
There you go. Eileen, tell folks how to reach the Sherpa.
Hey, LinkedIn, baby. So LinkedIn all day long. I'm on it. I'm posting. I'm sharing tips and tricks, and we talk a lot. In fact, Building Blocks of a Winning Proposal is available at Judy's website, but I'm teaching that class, so you get both of us for the price of one. And a lot of the work that we do a lot together. So you can, if you're reaching Judy, you're reaching me as well. But if you want to work with me directly, you can go to LinkedIn, or you can just simply call me at 312-636-5381, or find me at the federalsalessherpa.com website. But basically, LinkedIn is where I live, and my cell phone is the direct way you can get a hold of me. It's been the same number since 1995, since I started selling. You never lose me if you have that number. You can always find me.
Where are you both located? Where are you? Where are you right now? Like, Eileen, aren't you around Chicago? Are you in the Midwest, right?
Yes, I'm just outside of Chicago, but I'm actually a little closer to Woodstock, where the movie Groundhog Day was shot. So if you come to look at the set and you're going through Woodstock, I'm only 10 minutes away. So I'm about 50 miles outside of Chicago.
There you go. Judy, where are you?
I am in the greater Washington, D.C. area. I alternate between Alexandria and Baltimore, and I'm in the process of becoming a Marylander over the next year. But you can always reach me at 703-627-1074. I'm now just coming out into the world again, meeting with some people in person. And you're right. We're actually also we're reviving GovCon Rockstars. We're doing indoor rock climbing. When I'm not doing this, I'm actually a professional rock climbing instructor. And Eileen's been in my class and survived. And so on the last Thursday of the month at Sport Rock in Alexandria, Virginia. But you can see that on our LinkedIn profile as well.
That's awesome. I see you climbing rocks. I literally just got a place in Ocean City, Maryland. So I grew up in Maryland and kind of put down some Maryland roots as well. So there you go. We're both Marylanders. All great things come out of Maryland. So thank you both so much for joining us today. Cannot thank you enough.
Thank you.
Again, two rock stars.
We wish all of you wonderful, wonderful luck and good fortune and lots of focus in federal, state, and local.
Amen. God bless. Thank you so much for joining us today. So informative. Listen, those two, Eileen and Judy, two of the best, nominated several times. Actually, we did the Gov Sales Hall of Fame. I assume that's in their near-term future. A lot of folks have sent their name in, and they're doing great things. Especially, I know a lot of that can seem overwhelming. There's a lot of people, a lot of layers. When you get in the federal world, there's a lot of things. There's some secret sauce to make that happen. And both of them, they do a lot of work together, as they said, but they're amazing. They will help cut through the red tape and where you should not be wasting your time and writing proposals that don't go anywhere. And so cannot recommend them enough. They're both, and follow them on LinkedIn. They put up a ton of content
Yeah.
on a weekly basis. So amazing, man. There's both their LinkedIn below. Cannot recommend them enough. So thank you so much for them jumping on. So we started to get all these calls and we're like, hey, we need somebody to talk federal. So two of the best. So blessed that they would jump in today. Thank you so much. Steve, you want to tell folks one more time about the webinar that you're firing up in about 2 weeks of kind of focusing on, hey, how the government buys right now, state and local level, the new fiscal year.
Last month we talked about education, planning for the fiscal year, but the fiscal budget's dropping right now. So state and local agencies all across the country, or 46, there's a couple anomalies there like New York, Texas, Michigan, and Alabama. But you got it. So we're just trying to help people get into the market. The money's there. It's just about knowing what to do. And I think, Eileen, we're just kind of sharing, getting to the end users, like so important, developing the relationships. And a lot of people, when they think government, they take this reactive approach. They're like, I'm going to get a bit of an RP system. I'm going to sit back and respond to these deals and cross my fingers and hope to win. It's like, who does business? Like, yes, all right, you could get lucky, but you really have to get in the know and let people know who you are. And there's these little tips and tricks to get in there. And that's what we share during our webinar. So come join us. It's going to be Wednesday, 12.
What day?
It's going to be the 21st, Jack.
Yes, the 21st at noon.
At noon. Tune in there, and it's free. So just register online, govsalesuniversity.com. You see the website below. Look forward to seeing everybody.
Listen, sales, whether it's government or private, all about relationships. Good? Yep. So listen, hope everyone had a great holiday. We will see you next week. Have a great end of your week. God bless. Enjoy the summer. Don't let it get too hot. Woo! Go win some government sales, dang it.